Okay, well, welcome everyone. Well, we're here to talk about global fellowships, and we're going to have some short presentations from Arianna Campiani and from
Yes.
Susanne BÖRNER. In which order? Wait, while I check in which order. From Susanne BÖRNER first, who's speaking from Sao Paulo. She's doing a global fellowship between Brazil and the United Kingdom. And then Arianna will speak from Mexico, and she's doing a fellowship between Mexico and I think, and Italy, La Sapienza in Rome. Okay, so Susanne, if you want to start.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction and thanks everybody for being here. This is great. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so you can see that. Okay, so I'm Susanne, currently based in Sao Paulo. I've been a global fellow since August 2019. Yeah, I'm going to talk a bit about the challenges and the opportunities of conducting a global fellowship before and during COVID. So I was one of the unlucky ones who got caught in the middle of it all, but maybe lucky enough to still be in Brazil. At the moment, I'm not quite sure. It's one of the questions, staying or leaving. But yeah, I guess it's the flexibility we have to live with nowadays and everywhere. And I think for those of you still starting, I imagine it's equally challenging, not knowing whether you're able to go or when. So my project is about the food, water, energy nexus and disaster risk reduction. I'm working with the University of São Paulo at the Faculty of Public Health and the University of Birmingham, the School of Geography, Earth and Environmental Sciences, which means it's an interdisciplinary project between human geography and public health, working with Professor Peter Crafto and Professor Arianna. I think something I was thinking what to tell today, which could be relevant. I think I really loved the introduction and all the presentations being given this morning. Actually really helped me as well to kind of reflect on some things that went well and that didn't. Just to maybe give you just a short idea before I go more to the practicalities, because the thing I would like to share about what has worked well and like some challenges I have been facing. Just to give you an idea, if anybody's interested in the topic, maybe it's totally off what you're doing, but my project is around youth participatory action research, which sees youth as co-producers of knowledge around the topics such as disaster risk reduction and inequalities of access to food, water, and energy. And my research was really planned like as a very participatory project, going to the community in the periphery of São Paulo and really working with the community on a day-to-day basis in a way, and kind of co-designing my project with the young people. So it's been really challenging doing participatory work during COVID because it's one of the main pillars of my methodology. So what I'm trying at the moment is something I would like to talk about is also how to reinvent myself going digital with populations that are hard to reach, where it's kind of, well, a lot of challenges, right? Already, like when we talk about the ethics of doing research and the ethics reviews, I mean, from the EU and from the participating countries is already a big thing, but then going online has changed a bit the whole setup. But just to start maybe at the beginning, maybe one advice I have for those of you going on a global fellowship, what I did in the beginning was that I actually spent 2 months in Birmingham before coming to Brazil. Which was on the country rate of Brazil. So I kind of took the time from the Brazil time of the 2 years I was supposed to be here, because I thought it was really helpful to just meet the team and do all, you know, the basic things like opening a bank account, the tax thing, the payroll. It's kind of a full-time job, right? In the first month, just trying to figure out how everything works, get in touch with the EU team, meet my team. I knew my supervisor before, like I met him first time in 2015. So like I had like this early on contact, but still like being there, being able to discuss and like look at the things, you know, and build this personal relationship. I think for me, it's been really beneficial also now that I'm on the other side of the world to really have a face to the name and know who to contact and know how things work, because it can be really challenging and we can really feel a bit left alone in the beginning trying to figure it all out. And so as an advice I have for anybody being able to do that, at least spend a couple of days maybe with the beneficiary university to kind of get all this set up. And it would be interesting to see how Arianna dealt with all this in her case as well. And like it was said before, I mean, there's so many issues in the start of the project, like not to forget the data management plan and like a 6-month work plan and the career development plan. So I think it's really important to not forget that and like really have this set out in the beginning to make it easier later on. And what we were doing really early on is to have like regular meetings with both mentors, both supervisors here in Brazil and in the UK, doing this through Skype or now Zoom, and we're still doing this really regularly. So I think it's also really nice for them to kind of have this collaboration and like when we talk about the knowledge transfer, right? Like a big pillar of the fellowship is really transferring knowledge from one country to the other and all mutually learning. So I think it's really important to have this exchange. And then relocation to Brazil in my case, because of fieldwork, it was really important to plan the start arrival time around key dates such as holidays. So I started my fellowship in August after the summer break in the UK, and then I tried to go to Brazil before Christmas and Carnival because everything stops. And especially for field research, it was really important to consider the timing, because if you want to get in touch with key stakeholders early on and get access to the community, it was really something worth thinking about in terms of when to strategically actually start. Maybe a couple of advice or like, I don't know, thoughts on my relocation to Brazil. I mean, I spoke Portuguese before. It was really helpful. I think language, I haven't put it on the slide, but language is a big thing. Like, so think about if you need it in terms of like language courses or any kind of preparation, because in Brazil, everything works in Portuguese. So there's no way around that. Like I said, planning to start it wisely and try to get in touch as early as possible, like with the people you're going to work with, whether it's field research or like research centers, like try and build the networks. And I was lucky because I was able to go to a 2 weeks conference a year before I started. And I was able to also meet my supervisor here in person, which was nice to see where I would be ending up if it was really what I wanted, and already made some contacts before that. So it was a bit like coming home and going to something totally unknown. So, and like I said, I think it's really important, like also with the career development plan, to think about what do we want and like think about this early. So for me, it was really important to think about trainings and participatory methods, because it was something I hadn't had too much experience with and something I really tried to get done early on as soon as I got to Brazil, and kind of start setting things up even in the host country when you're not there already. And one thing to think about is also ethics, because the ethics approval takes so long. And like what we did was to get the approval, or like all the forms, filled out for the University of Birmingham, for the University of São Paulo, and for the ethics review of the EU, to do that before the actual start of the project. So as soon as you're in, you're able to get your things done, because you have the review, I think at month 5 or 6 with the EU, and it's really important not to miss that, because your project really depends on the ethics clearance. So it's really important to keep that in mind and maybe get things prepared as early as possible, because once you start your project, there's so many things you don't want to just dedicate full time to the ethics as well. So just a short overview of my project. Like I said, I'm working in the periphery of São Paulo, so you have a bit of an idea what that looks like, with young people aged 11 to 17. The idea was to have an extension course through the University of São Paulo, involving also different stakeholders. So I'm working through different social centers and with the civil defense. So very early on, we had like these contacts, and I was lucky to be able to go a couple of times at least, meet the community gatekeepers before COVID happened, but I was just able to go 3 or 2, 3, 4 times to work with the kids. So just to talk quickly about the uncertainties and opportunities. So my head went a bit like this. Everything stopped really quickly in March last year, when I was just really going full steam into my research. And then I was like, how to deal with this? How to deal with the population in vulnerability with often no access to internet, no access to phones, where young people often use the phones of their parents. A lot of practicalities in terms of what is actually like scientific rigor. How can I deal with all these challenges? Who do I have to inform? What do I do? Do I just stop? Do I suspend the project? Do I continue? Do I go part-time? Do I change my target group totally? And we tried to make like contingency plans ABC. I think a year after, it's totally different again. So it's good to be flexible. It's good to be prepared, maybe also lower a bit our expectations and sense of perfectionism sometimes. And and it can be really frustrating, because it's something we work towards so much, like doing the proposal, getting funded, and then well, it's really frustrating, to be honest. Like there's these moments where we go like, so what do I do? But it's also quite nice, because I don't want to talk only about what's not been going well, but actually a lot of things have happened in unexpected ways, because I was really worried about like not being able to keep up the interaction, with the UK in the same way, and how to network and how to keep this transfer going. So a lot of things have happened, and we have been able to conduct research online. I'm doing it through WhatsApp. I've currently enrolled 30 kids in the extension course at the University of São Paulo as planned after like a year gap, but we've been able to do this. I'm not sure how participatory it is and how engaging. I'm still experimenting with different styles, and who is interested in that and doing maybe participatory research, feel free to get in touch. I'm happy to discuss. So I've been trying and doing photo voice and like have them send videos, and we have like a one-to-one conversation with the group. So it's been interesting. But obviously there's many uncertainties around costed extension versus non-costed. I'm based in the UK, so I was able to be furloughed to the UK government for 3 months. So I had the opportunity to have a paid break where I wasn't allowed to work on the project, but still I could, you know, save the time. Then I decided to go part-time for some time as well. And like I said before, it's really important to be in touch with your project officer. And I found them really helpful. Like I was a bit scared in the beginning and like, you know, to not comply maybe with requirements, but I found it really helpful to be honest and transparent, and I found that they were really helpful, even though in the beginning I felt a bit lost as well, because I didn't really know how to talk to, you know, at the university, and then who is in charge of what, and then it's a lot of back and forward, and everybody was really overwhelmed. But it's really important to be in touch with your supervisor as well, whatever happens, you know, to have the support. And I feel really supported. I have to say I'm really lucky, maybe also with the contact I have. And the EU has been really flexible regarding placements. I decided to stay in Brazil because there's also a lot of things, you know, privately. What do you feel at home? You've just made your life in a new country. Are you just going to give it up and move back somewhere? Where? Do I go back to Germany, where I'm from? I'm out of the social system, out of the health system. Do I go to the UK, where I practically don't know many people? How does all this work? Brexit happened in between, you know, like actually this week it's been quite interesting, like trying to figure out, am I allowed to go back? Do I need a visa? Am I still kind of able to be in the system? Yeah, I wish there was a bit of more information around these things sometimes. It's another research project all its own, trying to figure out the practicalities. But I don't want to scare anybody. It's been a great experience, even, you know, during COVID. And I think, just to finish on a really positive note, I think it's been really great to have new opportunities for like hybrid field research, of going online, being able to include groups I haven't thought about, like having documented, you know, the results in different ways, like having it like through WhatsApp or the kids sending videos and material. It's been a different way of conducting things. And I think some things I would like to keep up in the future too. It's been really helpful, obviously, to have first contacts through gatekeepers, like personally. It's been really, really helpful. And like I said, it's a lot about reinventing our research, revisiting our expectations, not being too hard on ourselves, trying to make things happen. And what's been really great is the international networking. So in the end, I've been really creating great connections to researchers working on similar things in Australia, in Germany, in the UK, all over the world. And we have been like engaged in some really great activities, setting up conferences, workshops. Actually, I have been able to meet people I met online in person as well. So it's been the other way around. So it's been nice, and it has really allowed me to be more in touch with my beneficiary university in the UK, because I did a lot of I participated in trainings, in research groups, in coaching they have offered to the university, in conferences. So that's been really, really great, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity to actually, you know, benefit more from the beneficiary than was actually planned in the Global Fellowship. And I can really recommend trying to find like virtual ways of staying in touch, and maybe, you know, preparing yourself more for the return phase as well, because it can be really challenging to cut one phase and start another. And it's like, you know, I think this way it seems a bit more like as a transition. I look more forward to going back because I've actually seen people virtually at least. But yeah, at the moment, just currently, I'm not sure if I'm going to stay in Brazil, if I'm leaving because of the situation here. Well, but it's the same everywhere. So I think no response to that. I think we have to also consider our own, well, safety. And I think the good thing about like online work is that we can do it from everywhere. So I think it's a lot of considerations about what makes us feel well. Mental health of researchers was said before. I think it's something we should really not take too lightly, especially in a situation where we are in different countries, maybe far from family and the life we were used to. But yeah, but I think it's been a great mix. I would look forward to hear your thoughts on this as well, and also hear Arianna's experiences, if it was similar, different. She's in Mexico. Great place to be too. I love it. And yeah, looking forward to hear your thoughts. And anybody would like to get in touch, just on Twitter or email, or just write me in the chat. I'm happy to discuss more bilaterally. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Susanne. It was very interesting as an experience of a fellowship and of a pandemic. We can have questions afterwards. I should have said at the beginning, people can send their questions to the chat, and then we can deal with them after Arianna has spoken. So I hand over to Arianna now.
Thank you very much. So, okay, let me go to the beginning of this presentation. Okay, so I started my global fellowship on the 1st of January 2020. So I was already here when all the pandemic started, and my situation is a bit different from Susanne's. I got a postdoc at the National Autonomous University of Mexico, that it is my partner organization, and then I got the Marie Curie. So I was already in Mexico when I started the Marie Curie, because I was doing a postdoc here at the same institution. And also I was living in Mexico prior to moving to the US, and then I came back with a postdoc and with the Marie Curie. So I am familiar with Mexico. My husband is Mexican, and my husband's family is here. So I already had a network of people that I know, and also I was familiar with the National Autonomous University of Mexico, and also with my host institution supervisor. Well, I haven't been living in Italy for 15 years, so it will be a challenge to go back to Italy, I guess, hopefully at the end of this year. So some of the practicalities, so I am an archaeologist. I am working on archaeological projects. So for me, the big challenge related to the pandemic was not to be able to go to the field. And also I was asked to address some practical aspects related to arriving to another country, visa aspect, social security, and health insurance aspects. So it was very easy to get accepted at the Anthropological Research Institute as a postdoc. So here my position is a postdoc, and my visa, because here I am a postdoc, is a student visa, right? So to get it, I relied on the lawyer at the university who prepare all the paperwork and make me able to go to custom and to have my actual card, visa card, that I had to renew every year. So I just renew it. And because I am on a student visa, I am not paying taxes here. I am paying taxes in Italy. And as Brian was mentioning in the previous presentation, yes, I had that shock of thinking about getting a stipend, and then with the coefficient and with the amount of taxes I am paying in Italy is a lot less of what I was expecting, but still life here is worth, well, it's cheaper than in Italy, so it's a good stipend anyway, but that was a part of the shock at the beginning. And nonetheless, of course, I am under a contract with Sapienza University of Rome for 3 years, and Sapienza is also giving me a health insurance that it is a travel for business insurance. So last year I got injured and I needed a surgery, so the insurance cover everything. The bad thing about it, as in here the health system is mixed, is private and public. So the bad thing of that insurance is that it doesn't cover like routine exams. So if I have to have blood test or an MRI or something like this, I should pay them and probably get a refunding from the Italian government. But that I suggest it is something that you check prior to having the, I suggest you negotiate it with your host institution before going to your outgoing phase, because it is very important to be covered not only for accident, right? And also, as Susanne mentioned, the first months, well, I started on the 1st of January 2020, and then the pandemic was declared and the university actually closed a year ago. So I have been working from home. And the good thing is that with my funding, I was able to buy some 3D data. So I am trying to work on those data and having like the theoretical part of the Marie Curie done, of my project done, because we can go to the field, we hope at the end of this year, but it is still a big question mark. So at the beginning of the fellowship, I was actually working on the ethic issues and on the data management plan that you have to deliver. And I found support for my question at the International Office of Sapienza University of Rome, the same office that helped me in getting the project for the Marie Curie done. So they, for example, sent me the ethics self-assessment and the global code of conduct for researchers, that are all documents that probably you read while writing your Marie Curie project, but at the end, in the European Union system, there are a lot of documents, so you can get a bit lost. And finally, the last slide is about information I wish I had known earlier, and the things I am a bit still struggling with. So for example, a month ago, I got a webinar on organized by OpenAIRE on how to comply with Horizon 2020 open access. So for example, there are a lot of things that you can do to make your project visible through your grant agreement number or to your project number that will be actually linked directly to your participant project portal. And also one of my big suggestions is to get in contact with your fellows, with the Marie Curie fellows, both are at your host institution and in the country you are doing your outgoing phase. We did it with Victoria, for example, last year. We were able to get together, and I know Victoria is an important like point of reference for me here in Mexico City, if I have any doubt. But also through the webinar, to the OpenAIRE webinar, I got in contact also with another fellows at Sapienza, who is going to spend their outgoing phase in the US. And so thanks to where I realized, for example, that I was keeping like an Excel workbook, right, a spreadsheet with all the activities I was doing, but actually you have to go to the participant portal and start filling like the proper page. So this is my suggestion: establish a network with the other fellows, both in the country you are going and at your host institution. And that is all for me. So I will stop sharing the screen. And
thank you very much, Arianna.
Thank you.
So we have a question in the chat. I'm just looking about global fellowships with institutions from Europe and outside Europe. Can the institution in Europe be in the same country that you are living, or does it have to be in another European country? So unless things are changing in Horizon Europe in the new program, I think global fellowships, the institution can be in the country that you're living in, which I think was the case with Arianna.
So if I can say something, so there is the mobility rule, right, that you need to fulfill before, while you are presenting the Marie Curie. So the mobility rule apply from the deadline 1 year prior. So if the first time, if I would have asked for the outgoing phase in the US, as I was living in the US prior to arriving to Mexico, I couldn't have done so because
yes,
I was,
good point.
Okay, so yeah, that's the point. So
yeah, the mobility rule is for the outgoing host in the case of a global fellowship. Yeah. You can't go to a country outside Europe that you've been living in.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I had a question for Susanne. I found it very interesting. You said you spent 2 months in Birmingham at the beginning of your fellowship, and I was wondering, which I think is a great idea. It should almost be advised. I wanted to do something like that at the beginning of my global fellowship. It was between France and Brazil, and in fact, I wasn't able to because I was with the French CNRS and they had various ideas about how things were supposed to be, and they were inflexible. So one belief that they had was that the project couldn't start until I set foot in Brazil. So they would have required me. I could have gone back to France, but I had to be in Brazil on the first day of the project, according to them. So I had a lot of bureaucratic difficulties in trying to do anything. But you seem not to have had any difficulties with the UK.
Interesting. Good to know that. Yeah, actually, I put this into my proposal as well. Like we put like a 3-month phase in the beginning, then I reduced it to 2 because I thought 3 was maybe too much, and then we would have gotten too much, you know, into the Christmas period. But the only thing was that, you know, with the costing, I wasn't able to say, oh, I would like the UK country rate because everything's more expensive, right? I had to do this on my Brazilian rate. But one thing I'm currently trying to see with the EU is whether, you know, returning, I could reduce the return year to the UK because, which is normally not very negotiable. You always have to do the return year, but like in the case of pandemics, well, there was some discussion whether, because I've spent already 2 months in the beginning, whether I could use this time, you know, to extend the time in Brazil.
Yes.
But it's has more to do with COVID, you know, and the situation and project delays and the flexibility the EU is applying currently to help us a bit, like to deal with the situation. I mean, unfortunately, as far as I know, there's aren't any offers to have like a costed extension of projects of fellowships so far because of COVID. But yeah, I can really recommend, like, for all of you starting global fellowships, to kind of find a way to be, you know, at the beneficiary at least for a couple of days, because I don't know how to do this. I heard about a case of a lady being in Australia, and then she had to do all the thing like setting up, you know, I'm also going to the UK tax system. Actually, I'm not quite sure whether it's correct. It's what I was, the UK, I'm a posted worker. Like now I started wondering, wow, I've been out of the country for like more than a year. That actually, like, you know, the thing, it would be great to have like some tax advisor as well on the project or something in the beginning, you know, to tell us about all of these administrative things. We just think it's the way we're supposed to do things, you know, maybe it's not, right? But I mean, but like setting everything up like a bank account, how would I get like my money? Because it's pound, it's not euro, right? So for the UK, it's even more complicated. But so I couldn't get my salary unless I had a UK bank account. But how would I get an account if I wasn't in the UK? So
Exactly, yes. You had the same in my case as well. My France was not the country I was living in, so I had no bank account. I was not part of the social security system. All of that had to be done, but the CNRS in my case refused to do anything until the project had started, and to start the project I had to be in Brazil. So from Brazil I had to join the social security system. I had to, fortunately I had a bank account, but as you say, what would I have done if I didn't have a bank account? Yes, it made it quite complicated, but you made it part of your proposal.
Yeah, because I was wondering in the beginning how to do that. And also like in terms of my research, because I think it's really complementary, like, you know, my contacts with the UK working on the youth part, and then Brazil working on the participatory research part. So I also felt like I wanted to meet the team, you know, and like have like some initial discussions on what we're going to do. And I mean, the support from Birmingham has been really great. I have to say, like the team also is really experienced with Marie Curie. The financial team, the admin team. So I think it was really helpful because in Brazil, I think it was the first time as well, they had like a Marie Curie fellow, right? So actually all my expenses, it's also another thing to think about, how do you do your expense claims for any items you purchase? Because every university has different rules. So for me, it was easier, for example, to leave this all through Birmingham. So whenever I make expense claims, I do it to the UK system, and we didn't transfer the funds to Brazil. But this is something you have to also decide in the beginning on a case-to-case basis, who is managing your funds during the outgoing phase. I think there's no rule that fits everyone. It's really something you have to see in terms of, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I think it makes a big difference having a host who has experience of these things. Sorry? Bronwyn, you want to continue?
Well, just about the COVID question statement, I've put the link in. There's a lot more flexibility now. Talk to your project officer, and there are some additional flexibility with regards to the return phase for global fellowships because of COVID.
Okay.
And there's kind of basically allowing to have a 3-month secondment type arrangement, but it would still count as your time in Birmingham. So the correction coefficient would be Birmingham.
Okay. Another question I had for Susanne was about, you said you suspended your project for, I forget for how long,
3 months.
for a short time, a month, for a few months. And was that difficult administratively to arrange?
No, I think I was lucky though in my case, because I think it was particular to the UK government, because they had like a so-called furlough scheme, like which was the kind of scheme which was a lot of discussion whether this would apply for universities, whether as Marie Curie Fellow you could apply to that. So I just joined this quite late, whereas I think others maybe benefited earlier. But I was able to join it for like 3 months, so from June last year, I think. And actually, like I received my salary payment, normally. But the money kind of came from the government. But the rule was that I was really forbidden to do any work on the project. So I really had to stop 100% while being furloughed. And then I resumed the project. And every time it's also important, like whenever you decide to suspend or you decide to go part-time, this has to be done in agreement with the EU. So you have to make an amendment to your contract. But this was all dealt with by the EU team. I didn't really have to do anything. I just had to inform them in Birmingham. So the EU team would like make the amendment with the EU, and they would take care of all the paperwork. So it wasn't totally complicated, because actually I had like 3 or 4 amendments now, because I kept extending part-time as well up until January this year. But it was quite easy, but thanks to the team, I guess.
You have no idea how jealous I am. I suspended my global fellowship, and the first thing I discovered was that there was no way to suspend an employment contract in France. I had to be fired, or I had to resign. I had to resign from my position, and then once the suspension period was over, we had to sign a new contract to start again.
Wow.
And at the same time, there was this need of amending the contract at EC level, which I had to deal with again.
Really?
So I'm very jealous of your experience, but it makes a big difference having a system that has some experience in dealing with Marie Curie.
I can really recommend like going through an institution that has experience with Marie Curie. I think Birmingham has quite a long list, and then they were really supportive in everything, like the whole process, because it's kind of so confusing, and I think it's really overwhelming, right? Like when we start out this, and there's so many things we have to think of, like relocating different countries, all the different things, like I think my recommendation is to really find a beneficiary that's experienced, because it makes life easier for you. But then you're still not quite happy. So I'm glad you found ways of dealing with that.
Yeah, it just took a lot of time to deal with all these things. So a lot of time that could have been spent doing other things. Yeah. Well, do we... I wanted to ask a question of Arianna as well, just to be fair. You mentioned something about having 3D data, I think you said, because you weren't able to do field work. Do you mean geophysical data of an archaeological site or something else?
Well, yeah, LiDAR data, no, that are data obtained with a flight. So I was able to buy some of the data, and I am working on those data right now, right? Because we can't go actually to do excavation. And this is my concern. So of trying to have enough excavation data by the time the fellowship ends. But for now, I was able to manage with those data, with the analysis of those data, publishing on those data. I actually, there is a big postdoc network at UNAM, so we were organizing webinars and seminars and now, well, congresses. And so this is what I have been doing, the writing, right? But yeah. And so the Marie Curie funding cover the purchase of those data.
Very good. Very interesting. We had a question whether there's anyone who received a grant and was hosted by Austria. I don't know if there's anyone here who did that. No. If there's anyone who is, they can post an answer in the chat, I guess. Okay, well, we have no more questions. I don't know if anyone has any questions they want to voice.
Maybe to both of you. I mean, one thing I found really interesting about the cultural thing, like for Arianna going back to Italy, you know, I think it's also like the preparation for returning, you know, and what's coming after, and how you, what do you know, do you have any clear ideas of career perspectives? We heard about the career development plan, long-term goals, like.
Well, so there is something promoted by the Ministry of Italy that for like a global fellowship, it is not for the global fellowship if the university is interested and the department is interested too. They can hire you as long as you get the researcher reconnaissance in Italy. And then that can become like a tenure track or a position, right? But that depends on the agreements between the department and the Italian Ministry of Culture, right? Because they will kind of split the stipend. So it can be an advantage, but also it depends, no? Because there is always the problem that you have been outside of Italy for a lot of time, and then you go back and no one knows you. You know, it's like a bit. It can be a bit tricky, I think. But I don't know. That is my goal for now.
Thank you, Arianna. We have a question, an interesting question about. Oh, I'm sorry, there's a bit of noise here, about visas. How much time for visas? In fact, I had a lot of difficulty with visas for my project because it turned out, in my case, that Brazil wasn't used to receiving a global fellow and didn't quite know how to deal with this, because the visa application required a letter of invitation from the Minister of Research, who's used to issuing such invitations for projects they fund, not for projects funded by Europe. So that caused a lot of difficulty, and 6 months was very much a minimum time. I don't know what your experiences are, Susanne or Arianna, of visa.
Which visa are you on, Daniel?
My fellowship is finished now, but I did have I forgot the names of it now, but it was a researcher 2-year visa.
Well, yeah, the VTU, maybe? Because
yes,
for me, it
yes,
was a lot of discussion whether I could go on a student visa or researcher visa. And it really depends on the person attending you at the consulate. I lived in Frankfurt like 5 minutes away, and then it just appeared there like 5 times, you know, until I found somebody who was the most helpful. And I think they knew me already. They're like, oh, here she goes again. And everybody told you something different. It does take a bit of work because you have to sometimes get like, what you call it, apostille, like this legalization of documents and all these things. So think about like having everything ready and like getting all these stamps and whatever it is you need for each case. In the end, I think it didn't take too long to get it, but I think, yeah, I do plan maybe, I don't know, 3 months or something.
So for me, it was pretty easy. I went to the San Francisco Mexican embassy to get, with the letter of approval from the National Autonomous University of Mexico for the postdoc. And so they put a stamp on my passport, and while I entered Mexico, I had like 1 month to get my proper card. And my visa is a student visa, so I have to renew it every year. But because of that, I relied on the university lawyer. So she was guiding me in the process and starting all the paperwork. So in here was pretty easy, but of course, I guess it changes from country to country. When I was a postdoc in the US, there I had a job visa. So I was paying taxes there. So it's very different.
Yeah, I had help, in fact, as well from the host university in Brazil, and thank goodness, because they were able to contact the ministry directly and try and resolve all of this. Otherwise, it was an unexpected obstacle actually for the project.
Yeah, here too.
We have
Here the university was really helpful too, but it takes a lot of patience. You know, renewing is also fun. Like, you just plan the day, take some food. You know, sometimes it can really be frustrating, but in the end, it always works. Never know how, but it always does.
We have a question. Did any of the speakers run into difficulty regarding intellectual property agreements with the global host university, with the outgoing host university, that is? I have no such experience.
No, me neither. No intellectual property rights problems at the moment.
In a sense, you could say that the problems I had with the visa were linked to that, because I'm a geologist. My project involved looking at things offshore that include shallow gas of no economic interest, of environmental interest, but still it came under the idea of a resource. And in Brazil, there was a great sensitivity to resources. So somewhere people started asking, why is Europe paying somebody to come here and do a project on Brazilian resources? Which wasn't really the point, but it was the perspective that they took. And that was part of what was causing a difficulty in getting the visa. But in the end, that was resolved by understanding, I think, basically the nature of the project. Otherwise, there was nothing. And then with the host, in fact, I was using data at my host institution that belonged to them, but we came to an understanding on the security of the data and so on. That was all. Okay, well, I don't see any more questions, and we're 15 minutes over time. So I guess
I'm sorry. In the chat at the beginning, someone posted if we were sharing our slides. I have no idea. Yeah, but I have no problem on sharing those.
Okay, I don't know how we can do that. I guess people could ask you, perhaps, if they want.
Charlotte is saying that we are.
We are. Okay, right. Yeah. Yes, there was something at the beginning. Everything is recorded, and we're going to be on YouTube. Possibly, we've all become YouTube influencers as a result of.
No. Charlotte is saying that on the Euraxis LAC website, they will post the slides.
Okay, very good. Well, I'll just thank you both for your presentations, and thank everyone for attending this room, as it's called.